that reverses losses after the country recorded more than 3,000 COVID-19 cases for 4 straight days. Now, shares at one point, if you try to take a look at the one-day chart, sank to 6,600 after January employment figures were released. The PSEi managed to make an uphill climb from there. The PSEi's latest labor force report shows that the number of jobless Filipinos rose by 1.6 million to 4 million year on year. The January figure was also higher than the 3.8 million unemployed people in October 2020. The unemployment rate in January stood at 8.7%, the same as the rate in October of last year, as the labor force participation rate also grew. The number of persons who were under the labor force, or those aged 15 years and older, either employed or unemployed, rose to 60.5%, or that's around 45.2 million Filipinos. That's also a slight increase from the nearly 59% rate of 43.6 million in October 2020 and 44.9 million in January of last year. That means for January 2021, 41.2 million Filipinos were employed, higher by 1.4 million from 39.8 million in October last year, but lower as well from 42.5 million in January 2020. Labor Chief Silvestre Bello III welcomes the uptick in employment numbers, saying this was highly encouraging. He said they're expecting a better and more improved employment performance in the coming months as more Filipinos are getting inoculated against COVID-19. The central bank also banking on the vaccine rollout to help temper rising inflation. Speaking before the European Chamber of Commerce, Governor Benjokno says the BSP will be cautious in unleashing additional support measures. They're making sure that the timing is just right. It's not going to be too late nor too early. This to at least limit economic scarring. He says that the current slowdown in lending among banks is just temporary and that lenders have a strong capital position and stable liquidity buffers. Jokno adds that strong economic fundamentals, ample reserves will boost the local currency. The peso proving patient today here, strengthening a touch by 0.1% to 48 pesos and 52 centavos to the greenback. Here to date, those the peso has already lost 8% to the dollar. Now back to the bourse, looking at our leaders and laggards. Robinson's Retail leading our pack of winners here after it extended its share buyback program for another 2 billion pesos in an effort to raise shareholder value. The Gokongwei firm inched up by 3 4/10% to 53 pesos and 80 centavos a share. BDO also reversing losses yesterday after bad loans rose in January among local lenders. The C-led bank up today by 2 3/4%, now at 108 pesos and 90 centavos a share. Meralco also climbing after it enforced a refund that will lower electricity bills for those consuming 200 kilowatt hour per hour. That's going to be a deduction of close to 72 pesos per month. The power distributor is up 0.75%, rather it's 0.7% to 277 pesos and 20 centavos a share. Pure Gold is today's worst performer, down by 3.5% to 35 pesos and 90 centavos a piece. Ayala Land is also the day's biggest drag, still unable to recover after plans to reopen cinemas in the metro got deferred. Ayala Land down close to 2% to 37 pesos a share. Now off to another Ayala unit, this time around AC Energy. The power player is transferring its indirect ownership interest in the largest coal-fired power plant project in Mindanao. That's going to be for a base selling price of close to 453.24 million US dollars. After that divestment report, their AC Energy ended the day in the red, lower by 3 1/10%, now priced at 6 pesos and 55 centavos a piece. The move, according to AC Energy, is part of efforts to rebalance its portfolio and target of at least 5 gigawatts of renewable energy capacity in 4 years' time. Now, here are other stories from the corporate front. San Miguel Corporation is looking to remove 600,000 tons of silt and solid waste from the Pasig River annually over the next 5 years. The diversified conglomerate is just waiting for the arrival of 2 units of dredging equipment. The company said it will be working with the DENR, the DPWH, and other concerned agencies in extracting 50,000 tons of waste from the river every month. San Miguel plans to start cleanup operations in the Pasig River by April. The company is also undertaking a 1 billion peso dredging and cleanup initiative in the Tulyahan River system. SMC shares are down 0.8% to 124 pesos apiece. Now, PLDT Enterprises Information and Communications Technology arm is venturing into cloud with the launch of an e-commerce solution called Salesforce Commerce Cloud. PLDT said this allows businesses to utilize a one-stop shop solution that lessens the demands of managing various digital channels. The company said the Salesforce Commerce Cloud can power businesses' entire customer lifecycle from acquisition to purchase and fulfillment and so much more. This comes as more business shift to online platforms in keeping with the times as well as a precaution to COVID-19. Now, PLDT shares dipped to 1,296 pesos apiece, down close to 0.1% on Tuesday's trade. Now, the country is on its second week of vaccine rollouts, but have Filipinos gotten over their fear of COVID-19 jabs? Not yet, it seems, at least according to the latest study of the Ion Group before shots were administered. To talk about their findings, we have their Chief Innovation Officer, Carlos Mori Rodriguez. Good afternoon, Mori.
Good afternoon, Jester, and thank you very much for having me this afternoon.
All right, just to clear things up, the study was conducted almost a month before vaccines were rolled out. My question is, if you were to conduct the study today, would you say the results would be any different?
Well, definitely the objective of this study was to measure the baseline perception of Filipinos insofar as vaccines are concerned. And we found that between the period of January 29 to 30, an overwhelming majority of Filipinos still did not want to have vaccines administered to them. We are supposed to do this survey again in a couple of months just to test whether communication strategies of the Department of Health and other sectors have been successful in moving the needle of public perception.
Okay, given that, I mean, looking at the report, willingness based on our January survey, only at 36%. What drove that?
Well, when we talk to the respondents across the country, these are 4,400 respondents on the survey, there's an overwhelming lack of information around vaccines. So a lot of Filipinos are still wary whether the vaccines will be effective to combat the virus. And they're also very concerned about the side effects that the vaccines may have in the long and short term. So these are some of the questions that the Department of Health, as well as other sectors, must be able to answer in very simple terms so that the public can allay their fears about vaccination.
How much of this is still latched onto the whole Dengbaksha experience?
A lot of respondents still mention the 2017 Dengbaksha issue. When we ask them about why they had these kinds of hesitations, I think the public perception is still strong and there's still a traumatic effect insofar as that issue is concerned. So, there is still a very, very big need for a communications campaign to be undertaken across the country, to really substantiate the effectiveness of the vaccines and why a vaccine program will be able to help curb the economic crisis that our country is feeling right now, and also, save our countrymen from all of the threat of COVID-19.
Now, Maury, I also want to drive your attention to at least one particular result here of your study, quite polarizing results at that. Acceptance and unacceptance is quite high in areas where there was an uptrend in cases during the period when you conducted the study, particularly in the Cordillera and Central Visayas, wherein acceptance was high in Cordillera. It was quite low in Central Visayas. Where do you think lies the difference?
I think it's all really about how the local government unit is able to engage the citizens of that particular locale. I think in the Cordillera Administrative Region, the LGU was successful in terms of engaging its community in talking about the virus and how to best, prevent themselves from getting infected. And I think this has motivated the people in terms of like really researching what the vaccine program how the vaccine program will benefit them. And so we see that in terms of hesitancy, that it is quite low in the Cordillera Administrative Region, and a lot more citizens in the Cordillera would like to be vaccinated when the vaccines become available in the country.
All right. Also, how much of vaccine trust is anchored on the brand? In short, how brand conscious are Filipinos when it comes to the jabs? I mean, familiarity is high based on your report, but trust levels are quite low.
Right. Pfizer is still the most popular in terms of awareness, but in terms of trust, it is still very low. 42%, around 40% of people trust Pfizer, despite the fact that it's most popular. Sinovac is the second most popular brand, although it's definitely not the second most trusted brand. So we see that although brand is powerful, people still need to see, like in very clear terms and with the real examples, how these vaccines are effective in terms of saving lives. So the brands still have a lot to do in terms of moving the needle for perception.
Now, how should government immunization officers actually take this result of the study, considering the fact that trust level for Sinovac and AstraZeneca are quite low?
But the first order of the day is for our decision makers and implementers to really arm themselves with as much scientific information as possible. Second, of course, is to launch a communications campaign that leverages on an influencer network. We saw through our survey that although people have access to social media and television and news from the Department of Health, they would most certainly welcome information coming from their trusted circles or friends or influencers. So the decision makers and influencers must be able to talk about these scientific terms in the most understandable way possible, as well as leveraging an influencer network to be able to spread the word that vaccines are the way to go and that it will save lives.
Okay, just to clarify, when you mean influencer network, the normal perception is that it's all part of the social media sector here. But at the same time, do you also take it to mean a close circle, maybe a family member or friends who are actually vaccinated?
Definitely. But I think, all of these influencers, celebrities, and ambassadors do have a lot of following and influence in terms of being able to convey safety. And so in terms of tiering an influencer network, of course, you have to prioritize those with following influence. And then those respected and credible members of the family or social circles will follow. So all that has to happen in succession. And we can measure at the end of the day, after 2 months or so, whether this kind of campaign is effective in terms of being able to increase vaccine acceptability for the Philippines.
Okay, given that, how should authorities take into account your study? How should they utilize your study to at least help address vaccine hesitancy among Filipinos?
I think, first of all, they have to accept the fact that it's not a one-size-fits-all marketing campaign. People do not accept vaccination for many different reasons. So they really have to understand why certain cohorts do not want to get vaccinated. And that requires a different kind of communication strategy to be able to convince them to have the vaccine administered to them. Second of all, as I mentioned, is they have to have a lot of scientific basis and information uh, articulated in layman's terms so that more people will be able to understand what the vaccines are for and how it will help save lives. And third is to really predicate the entire framework on an influencer strategy that will be able to influence as many people as possible.
All right. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon. Looking forward to your future studies when it comes to, of course, the country's vaccine rollout. Again, we have the Chief Innovation Officer of Ion Group, Carlos Mori Rodriguez. Thank you, Mori.
Thank you.
And those are the biggest news this trading day, March 9, 2021. Catch Businessworld live again tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. for the market open and 3:15 p.m. for the market close. I'm Jes Delos Santos. We are One News. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines.